Hey, Bianca, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jason. Happy to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you on. Tell us who you are, what you do.
My name is Bianca Beatty. I am based out of San Francisco, and I own a small agency, boutique agency called Raven and Company. And we are a full stack agency that does everything from events to full scale go to market strategy, social, you name it.
Awesome. And how'd you get started? Why'd you start an agency?
So actually, kind of going back to high school, one of my internship classes that I took was at a wellness center, and they needed marketing. They needed newsletters. They needed all these things. And I had a natural ability to put information together to kind of know what people were looking for. And so I started building that. I got my real estate license when I was 18 years old. And when it came time to actually market myself, that was something that I only had budget for. It wasn't something that, I was going to farm out. So I started marketing myself and getting really creative with that. And then also helping other real estate professionals do the same. And so when the market was changing, this is back in the kind of mid 2000 ish, I I kind of switched to that because I found myself without a sale for almost a year. And I thought, oh my gosh, I studied economics, but I didn't really realize what it was happening.
Hmm.
And so I started training other realtors on what they needed to do, started building out their email campaigns and how to position them better, more niche neighborhoods, becoming an expert in this and that versus the whole thing, right? And during that time, I had someone ask me if I'd be interested in working for a B2B and B2C company, which was the largest online marketplace for antiques and vintage, based out of San Francisco, but everybody worked remotely. So I was living in Florida at the time, and I took that on, and I expressed my interest in marketing and growing myself within that team. And that brought me to a career with them for almost 7 years. And I worked my way up to head of marketing. And within a lean team, you learn, everyone has to do multiple jobs. And so I learned how to do everything, and ads and SEO and product placement and email campaigns and what the revenue looked like and how to make sure that every action that we were doing was for a reaction on ROI. And of course, brand presence, all of those things. But, and if things aren't working, how to pivot. So I worked with them for 7 years. And then in 2018, I thought, I really want to do something on my own. And so that's what happened. I went out on my own and created Raven. And Raven is the ultimate messenger when we're thinking about the bird and the history of it, and this really intelligent messenger. And I love communications, and I love messaging and what that means, and being able to get through to every type of person and how they ingest information, right? And
Yeah.
I think that marketing is a vessel for that to happen. People are visual, people are, like to, auditory, all of these things. And kind of honing and constantly pivoting around that. So that's kind of how I got started, and it started building from there.
Very cool. I heard ravens never forget. So, like, if you're mean to a raven, it will remember till it dies.
Oh, totally, totally. And I'm like that. Like people say, I have like a memory like an elephant. So, but a
Yeah.
memory like a raven is for sure.
Yeah. I'll be like, yeah, you screwed me over in college. I remember. Yeah.
Exactly.
I remember my first job out of school was with Arthur Anderson. I didn't last very long and started the agency not too far after that. And I had my old boss apply to my agency.
Oh my
She
goodness.
didn't know I worked there. She didn't know I owned it. I didn't hire her, but I remember. Maybe I'm a Raven. Maybe I should have
Oh,
called it
maybe.
Raven Consulting.
Yeah, that's too funny.
um, so you've been doing it for a while, and what's the thing that really kind of surprised you after you started your agency that you were like, man, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. So for me in particular, I know that for some people, it's building out your niche. Some people market to only interior designers or architects. Some people do hospitality. Some people do this and that. And I have varied interests, and I don't know if it's always the smartest way to go, but I get a lot of energy from learning new industries, but also it always seems to, for some reason, it always, whenever I dive into a new client or new industry, there's something from my past that I can apply to it. And also a lot of it is very similar. It's a different vertical, but a lot of the same stuff applies, right? And but as far as the relationship goes, whether it's media or understanding the audience, right? That's where I think niche representation matters more. But what was surprising to me is how much I would like the versatility, and how much I could apply from past learnings within it, and that it actually worked. And for example, one of my clients is a Caviar client. And this is something that's so simple, but it was actually, they told me later on that it was a deciding factor between myself and somebody else. And it's pulling from your stories, it's pulling from history. It's also who you are and your personality. People really like to work with people that they click with, right? Not just, I've hired agencies before to work with clients, and it's very methodical, and this is what I do and this is my role, and
Mhm.
people really like to have that synergy going on. So for example, the Caviar client, they really liked my presentation, they liked my work and everything, but right before the call I thought, actually Caviar, I didn't work in Caviar when I was 7 years old. And the funny story is, my dad bought this really cool house or building on the water that happened to be a commercial fish house. And he was going to turn the whole thing. It was all built, with boardwalks all around it and all these different buildings, but it was still a running commercial fish house. And he thought, I'm going to run it for a year and then I'm going to turn it into a house. And he later did, and it was on front covers of magazines, and it was really, really cool property. But within that time, my brother and I were given jobs to squeeze the fish to find out if they're male or female, and to divide them up, because that roe was sold to China and other areas to be able to have that product. So I told that story, and and I love caviar and I love seafood, but I told that story and she was like, "Oh my goodness, that story is what got me. Your work is impressive, but the fact that you're, passionate about, that you have some kind of, tangible experience just in handling fish itself." And as I evolved within that company, the different offerings, you realize how many people do not know where caviar comes from, what type of
Yeah.
fish, all of it. And of course, most, why would they? And so that educational component of knowing is, depending on the offering, has turned out to be important. And for me to kind of be able to translate that easily to the naked eye has become,
Yeah.
a real thing. So,
I like that. There's a couple things that I learned from that. Is I didn't know you could squeeze fish, even though I grew up on the water. Like, so I want to I want to understand that. But since you
well, I was PG about it, but I can go into detail if you want.
yeah, yeah. So, well, maybe we won't go down that road, but I am curious, since
Mm-hmm.
you are from Florida and now you
Yep.
live in San Francisco. One of my rules is this: since I grew up in Florida and in Long Island, I will not eat seafood unless I'm on the water. Does that
Oh,
apply
yeah.
to you as well?
Yeah. I mean, you're in a mountain town and you go to a sushi restaurant and somebody goes, well, I don't think there's any fresh fish around here that's going to be on the menu. And you're like, well,
Yes.
most fish are, actually flown in from Japan or elsewhere. And
Yeah.
a lot of it's flash frozen, no matter if you're on the water or not. And some of that seafood that you're getting, or
No, no,
that
no.
is, yeah,
Earmuffs.
no,
Earmuffs. I'm
no,
not
it's no.
listening.
There's nothing bad, but a lot of the seafood that is being caught, or the fish that's being caught, let's just say in Florida, is not always sold at those restaurants. You may have
Oh, I
like
know.
some grouper,
You
but
got to know which restaurants to go to.
you got to know what restaurants to go to, and those are usually the mom and pop restaurants where they're like fresh catch, and they partner with a different, or they have their own fleet of fishermen. So you definitely
Mhm.
have that. But then you also have, for example, like my dad was selling to China. So not many people, and this was mullet. This is mullet row.
Oh, I
Unless
remember.
you were a fisherman in the Everglades that like smoked mullet, you hardly find anyone talking
So
about that.
caviar is from mullet?
No, but fish roe essentially is a type of caviar. So you have black caviar and then you have roes. Roes can come from trout, steelhead, salmon,
Okay.
whitefish, like topiko when you have sushi. But then black true caviar comes from sturgeon, and sturgeon are indigenous to this area, but also on the Snake River. I think some in Colorado, and then you also have paddlefish. You have other
Huh.
fish.
I
True black
never,
cat.
I've never had that palate. I always had the hot pocket palate, I guess, versus the caviar
You can.
palate.
It's a high-low thing. You can put some caviar on a hot pocket. I
Oh no.
actually did an event for them over the weekend at this wine and food festival, and I had to come up with some high-low. The theme was kind of high-low amongst a lot of this. So we're working with different chefs and coming up with different ideas, and they were like, well, we're going to be serving smash burgers, and I said, well, if late at night, let's do little soft serve with a local. You always want to be thinking branding, right? You're always want
No.
to be thinking, how can you partner? So local ice cream company, and then we're going to put caviar on top, and
On
so
ice
it's.
cream?
Oh yeah, because it's that salty sweet. It's just like a caramel that has sea salt on top. And so that's something. And then when there was a caviar tasting and we had the caviar girls there, I was like, Doritos. Doritos are great. And I had seen something trending on, they call it Caviar Talk, TikTok, where some of these chefs were saying, oh my gosh, like some of the best combinations in caviar is Doritos and caviar. And so I tried it and it was a huge hit. So,
Really?
yeah, so Hot Pockets, burgers, fries, milkshakes, the whole nine yards. It's that sweet, that savory sweet
Yeah.
mix and kind of that umami thing.
I
So,
think I can't eat hot pockets anymore. In my 20s, I think I counted how many hot pockets I ate. I ate
yeah,
like 18,000 hot pockets in a decade because I
I
had
like
it for breakfast,
you
lunch, and
could have had
dinner.
a pepperoni one. Yeah, pepperoni's good.
Yeah, I can't eat them anymore, but
Yeah.
yeah, love my hot pockets. Um, but what I like how you relate to your clients too, right? Like that's something that a lot of times people have a hard time to do. Um, whenever like for example, when we got on a call today, I'm like, oh, Florida, like
Hmm.
you can relate. Like you got to pick out those little pieces in order to really kind of connect with your clients, but also kind of show your team how to do that as well.
Oh
Because
yeah,
if you just do it yourself, they're just going to connect to you, and then you're going to be the biggest bottleneck. And then it's just like everything depending on your shoulders, which I
absolutely.
feel gets very, very stressful. When I was in that situation, I would connect with everybody. Everyone would always come to me. And then I was in prison. Like I got into this business for freedom and to make my own hours and do all the things I wanted, but I couldn't take any time off. Like everything was on me. Did you ever go through that, or you going through
No,
that
and I
now,
still
or
go through it. I think it's a never. I think that when you are personable, and one of the things about marketing and being someone that really understands how to connect with your audience, part of that is the relationship with your client. If you can't connect with them and their brand and their product, how are you supposed to connect with the masses? How are you supposed to convey what that is, right, to multiple people? And so it is very important, and it comes natural to me. And maybe that's why I'm in this industry, that when I meet someone new, to be able to find something, and it's not that I'm thinking about it, it's not a conscious thing. It's like, oh, you can easily piggyback off of, just a few basic questions when you first meet someone, and actually part of your team he had a hat on, Darby, and it was a trout. And then I started, and then that turned into a whole
I mean,
conversation.
he's a
Um,
huge fisherman.
Totally. And I fly fish and so we were talking about Mexico and the whole thing. And before you know it, we had this long conversation. And so when it comes to, and so a lot of my clients, they do like working with me. It can be an issue where they want to stay on the phone with you for a couple hours and before you and or they want to come to you with everything and they don't relate to your team. So hiring for talent is extremely important, but empowering your team members to be themselves and to have that freedom to be themselves, and that it makes it that much more fun. And
Yeah.
so, and really kind of have the professional but relaxed aspect of who you are and to get things done. And so that way, when people are working with your whole team, they're like, this is a great team. Love working with them,
Yeah. Well,
instead of, just so much task oriented and not much personality.
yeah, I know. I'm always hiring for kind of values first,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it starts off with, knowing your own values. You know, yeah, when I was hiring at the agency, especially in the very beginning, or for many, probably half the time when we were just getting by, I was just hiring for the talent, and I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you want to work for us? Like, oh, that's, and then I had to switch it and being like, with this person, and I really kind of judged it, especially too when we invite people to our events that we do. They're always small, intimate events. Like we have
Yeah.
one in British Columbia coming up in the fall where we fly fish and horseback ride and we hang out with campfires and all that kind of stuff. And I've always done it. Could I go on a road trip with this person?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Would
Yeah.
they annoy me? Like, are they cracking their knuckle? Like, are they never shut up? Are they talking all the time? Or like, are they, do they have different values than I do? Like,
Yeah.
are they, like, we wouldn't get along? And so I've always tried to do that within our team
Mm-hmm.
and our clients. So then, when you do that, it makes it so much easier, going forward. So it's a lot of fun.
And sometimes there's not alignment, with clients. And I think when you come from a value system and and being able to kind of purposeful leadership and innovation, right? And so like
Yep.
if you're able to pick and choose your clients, like you don't have to work with everybody, right? And so when somebody comes to you or you find them, you need to be excited about who you're working with and around the product. And if it's not the right fit, you need to do them that service as well as yourself to move on and to
And your
know when
team.
that's the right time. What? Excuse me?
And your team. Like, do
And
you
your
like
team. Yeah,
your team's going to
exactly.
be miserable? Then they'll leave, and then you have to find a new team, and you don't realize how much that actually costs. Like, I would always defend my team over a client any day.
Yeah. And you don't want your team or yourself to be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm dealing with this nightmare client." And that's why a lot of people get strict about change orders, about all these things and why it's important to, toe the line in a sense of, yes, I'm fun to work with. I love communication. I love being friendly with you. Like, that line kind of gets blurred sometimes where your client's like, oh, this is so friendly, but also we're working together. And making sure to have those conversations early enough when you see that there's a pivot in how when what they're asking for or
Yep.
demands on your time and saying, hey, let's revisit. This all sounds wonderful, and I think we have the capability of doing it all, and I want to meet your needs. Let's see if we have the capacity within our team, and let's look at our contract again to see where this fits and that it works for both of us. And when
Yeah.
you're just transparent and upfront about it, then the biggest damage is really to yourself, and to the agency and as a whole. And because people, coming off of that, you get kind of PTSD. You can, like, your team,
Yeah.
you're like, I don't want to do that again. So it is important to identify that. And I think that comes with experience. It comes from, when you're, like I was saying before, when you're first getting into, creating your own agency, usually you're just the lone wolf, unless you have a partner. And it can be very lonely, and you're also looking for whatever business can come to you. And so you're casting this net and you're kind of bringing in whatever you can. So it's about getting really clear about who you want to work with. There's nothing wrong with going out there and actually pitching yourself to people that you want to work with, even if they're not hiring.
Yeah.
And then you just really, I think through the years, you just keep on kind of pivoting to what you really want to be doing and who you want to align with. And I think by doing that, it's just a good fit for
Yeah.
everybody.
Well, awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for sharing. I've learned a lot about agency and fish that I never knew. Maybe I'll ask you more about it when I hit the end record. But if you guys enjoyed this, make sure you like, subscribe, and if you guys want to know more about this epic adventure we have in the fall in British Columbia, make sure you go to digitalagencyexperience.com. We're fly fishing. We have spa, archery, horseback ride, hanging out at campfires,
And
all in this amazing ranch. So check it out.
wonderful.